I have been looking through your website and what you do, and I'm just like blown away by your journey. I really am. I just feel like seeing, you come from a childhood where before you even knew what was happening, you were just addicted to so many different things. And then growing to become someone who can actually help people in the same space. It's a very powerful transition and transformation that sadly not everyone makes it.
And many people get into recovery, but they get very stagnant and self-orientated.
Yeah.
And that for me is such a shame too. It's like, for me, it's all about giving back what we've been given. And,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
God's been so good.
100%.
I'm so up for that because it's funny. I was thinking I'm doing a preach in a few weeks, and I wanted it to be a bit different. And I'm going to challenge people and ask them to have a few moments to think about when I say addiction, what does it conjure up in their minds?
Yes.
And you think about your sort of park bench drinker or someone injecting heroin, and it's like, no, it's so not.
No.
You know what I mean? Most people have something. If they
Yes.
were free of, they'd be happier. So I
Yeah.
think it's a bit like, I see a really opportune time at the moment, actually, a bit like mental health. The more we talk about it, the more people get help and dispels the stigma,
Yeah.
so that's my sort of life goal, to be honest. And all this stuff is just phenomenal, what God's kind of giving me in the team.
Yeah.
I just get the privilege of working with great people in it. So yes, I'm the sort of forefront, but behind, with me, not even behind me, but with me is so many great people cheering this on. So I hopefully can be a decent spokesperson for them
For
today.
them. Yeah. Who is Emma? Who is Emma? Like, how did Emma begin this journey? Just for the people who would have seen this for the first time.
Well, the funny thing is, many years ago, I mean, do you mean the journey of where I'm at now,
Yes.
or sort of? Okay, so I ended up in a rehab it's got to be about 16, 17 years ago now. And I remember the very first night I had a bit of clarity. So it was several days into a detox that I was on because of alcoholism. I was on a very strong opiate detox to help me because it's so dangerous to withdraw. And I remember laying in this bed, tiny little sort of single dormitory style bed.
Yeah.
And I just prayed, and I hadn't been connected to God for so long. And I prayed and I said, God, if you help me to get through this and to overcome this addiction that has completely broken my life to the point where I wanted to die, I promise that I will give back and help other people. And funnily enough, though, I think it was around the same time in this rehab, I said to some people, I never, ever, ever want to work in addiction.
Yeah.
I was like, I've lived a life of it. I hate it. I don't want to work in it, because a lot of people, when they go into recovery or treatment, they kind of think that they know all the answers, and actually, their best thinking got them drunk or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And many of my friends went into treatment work, but I was adamant I wasn't going to do it. But when God knocks on the door of your heart enough, you have to. It's like, there's a saying that says, if you go into a barber's enough, you're going to get your hair cut.
Yeah.
And it was a bit like that I literally was, okay, I have to do something and make a difference to people that were like I was.
Yes.
And it took a bit of time, and sensibly I waited a little while. I volunteered, and he kept giving me ideas and opportunities. God is the biggest provider of opportunities, but so often we don't take them up. And I often need to be nudged into a corner before I actually go, okay, God, yes, I hear you now. Even though I've heard it many times before.
Yeah.
And I've just said yes. I've just said yes and seen what God's done. And it's been beautiful. It's been a hard journey, but it's been beautiful.
Yeah. The thing is, God nudges every single one of us in the same way, but some people never respond.
Yeah.
Like, they don't. They go through their whole life and they don't respond, and God's like, I've been fighting, come out, step out. And you've responded. And
It's
because
like Peter, isn't it, stepping out of the boat, like he can see Jesus, but he's still fearful.
yeah,
And when he takes his eyes off him, he starts sinking. And there's many times on this journey that I've taken my eyes off God and been like overwhelmed, and the enormity of the vision he's provided. And that's natural. But I think God just smiles at us and says,
100%.
come on, come
100%.
back.
100%. It is the harder road. The scripture that God was bringing into my heart this morning was, ask for the hard thing. Ask for the hard thing. And I was like, it's like, I don't know. Like, sometimes we're afraid to ask because we're scared, or we think that he will say no.
And I also think he doesn't show us, because I think in that treatment centre 17 years ago, if he'd have shown me what would be happening now, I'd probably have run a mile and think, absolutely no way, Jose. So it's gentle because he knows us so well.
So true. And loves us. This is his display of love. To not just us, but to the people that we meet, the connections we make. That is his display of love to all of us. He has a heart for us, and I think that's so beautiful, that in you reaching out to help people have a healthier understanding of addiction, that they can see God's love in that. That I'm going to help you navigate these complicated spaces that we weren't equipped to be able to.
Exactly. And I've never met anybody in my walk that one day woke up and said, today I'm going to turn into an addict or an alcoholic. You know what I mean? It's life is incredibly hard for people, and it's a natural thing to turn to things to soothe them. And sadly, the way of the world is programming us to be addicted to things. Our phones, I always say to people, take your phone away for a day, how will you feel? You'll be climbing the walls, most people.
It's so true.
And that's what we're living with day by day around us, feeding us, and actually it's harder to break through that. And so
I think as well, we're in a society where people are afraid of the sound of their own internal voice. That to be able to sit down and look at your fears and your flaws, your ability, your potential to actually assess your own state of being. There's so many people who don't do that and are afraid of that, and the only reason I know that is because one of my friends, she does a reflective prayer retreat where people go away, and she said you'd be surprised how hard it is for someone to just sit there, like you said, without their phone, in silence, or praying. It's like, oh, I have to do something. I can't do this, and that state of being is not something we're taught to practice, even though we are taught to pray. We are in a world right now where people don't practice stillness.
That outside noise. And actually God really convicted my heart in this when I first started working in this field, and I actually went away and abroad, and I said, right, I'm going to come off of social media. I'm only going to have my phone on for a certain time just to check on family, my mum and doing well and things. And I went away, and I could not sit. I was laying in these beautiful surroundings, but I was so on edge because I realised how dependent on my phone I was. But after a couple of days, I started to enjoy it, and I started to hear God more clearly. I started to act better. I was looking after myself more, looking at the priorities of my life, and it was a beautiful time. And I remember getting home, and I'd travelled back to London and then did the journey back to Bournemouth, and it took probably all in all about 14 hours of travelling. And I remember getting through the front door. It'd been raining, I had a coat on, my luggage, and I was stood in my doorway having shut the door, and I literally picked my phone up before even sitting down and started checking Instagram, Facebook, Messenger, all the different things, LinkedIn. And I was stood there for an hour and a half. And I was exhausted, but I still did, and it drew me in like that straight away, and in a second it can come back. And it's
a really interesting because we don't talk about our phones as addictions because it is still new, isn't it? We don't talk, it's now becoming something we're going, wait a minute, like I could go a whole day just on my phone, forget to
It's
eat.
actually a condition now. They've diagnosed a condition called, I think it's nomophobia,
Oh
people
wow.
addicted to their phones, because in America they've seen youngsters commit suicide when their phones break or their phones go missing. And it doesn't surprise me, it's probably happening here in Britain, but I've seen, you know, you can't communicate with people. You see parents walking down the street holding the pram in one hand and the phone in the other. It's not how God intended.
100%. And this is why, like I said, I'm so glad we're doing 12, because
Yeah.
just having these conversations,
Yeah.
they are needed. What you are doing is needed. And I, as you probably can hear, I'm so passionate about conversations like this. I'm passionate about learning, about thriving, because a lot of us are in survival mode and we have no idea. And what you are doing is kind of ripping that band-aid off, like, come on, let's wake up, you know. Have you had any like breakthrough experiences recently? Because I know you probably had a lot. You probably had quite a bit, but recently with maybe churches or individuals who have kind of come to realize that, you know, things like their phones are addictions. Like, have you had any?
Well, I've never met a church that doesn't want to help people with addiction in all the years of going around churches setting up courses, but often they just don't know how to. So all we do is sort of gently come alongside them, giving them the sort of upskilling and the tools in a really gentle way to be able to actually step in with confidence to make a difference. So every single church that comes to us and says, they always say, we don't know what this looks like. There's probably a lot of fear in their, you know, groups, their congregations. But when you start seeing them understanding more and giving them individual team members the confidence to step in, that's where we see the breakthrough. They start saying, yes, we can actually run a course, or we can actually set up a support group, or, you know, and that's the beauty of it. It's not complicated, but the fear can be a blockage. So there's many the churches. I went up to Durham a few months ago and met a team, and they had an amazing group of people. You know, there were little old ladies that not do their hospitality that came. And the beautiful thing is, what we do is, it's not just for people with addiction backgrounds. We want to upskill the wider church. And literally, you know, some of them, I'll tell you, there was a story actually with a lady. She was in a Methodist church. She was in her 90s. She was married to a Methodist minister who passed away, but she was so active in her church. And we ran a course in her church. And they said, well, because we're all about collaborating with churches, not, you know, if there's a group of churches in an area that want to do this, let's all do it together. It makes absolute sense. You know, one of my big bugbears is when you see, you know, Alpha running in one place, and then on the same night, you know, a few hundred meters up the road, it's on at the same time. Why aren't we doing things together? And anyway, they said, well, all we can do is provide a group of old ladies that will make the tea and coffee. I said, that's amazing. You know, come along, that's brilliant. And I remember doing some training with them, and they came and they were like scared little rabbits, you know, like just like, you know, what are we embarking on? And talking about addiction and what, you know, some of the mess involved, and because it's a messy ministry. But my gosh, someone said to me once, you get a front row seat to miracles in this ministry, and that is so true. But after the training, and they were still scared, you could see it. And when we started the course on day one, they came there, they were making the tea and coffee, not looking at anyone, you know, just fearful because of what the world tells people. And then as the course was coming to an end several weeks later, I walked past one of the men's groups. We had separate sort of men and ladies, and there was this lady, Pat, in the middle of this men's group. She always used to bring her little china teacup that she had everywhere, just sitting there, just drinking her tea next to probably one of the roughest chaps I know.
Yeah.
And they looked so comfortable.
Yeah.
And at the end, we asked people to share their testimonies of, you know, what God's done or how their recovery journey's been. And she asked if she could actually share something.
Yeah.
And she got up and she said, you know, getting involved in addiction work in her 90s,
Yeah.
most people said she was bonkers. She said it has transformed her walk with God, because in all her life, people in the church are talking about those outside, those with the problems, but she said she saw it. She was so on fire for God after running a course for them. And it was just, I love stuff like that. You know, it's about how do we help anybody and everybody to embrace it.
It's incredible, because what you're showing is that the miracle is also in the change of perspective.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just that, oh, okay, this person stops taking alcohol or drugs or being on their phone all the time. It's the kind of, okay, this is what addiction looks like.
Yeah.
And this is what we can do, how we can be a church that is accommodate, because we all, you know, I've heard this in so many churches. I've been in church all my life, and I've heard this so many times, that we want anyone to come in, and it's like, but are we equipped to help anyone? You know, so even though we might have the heart for it, if we're not equipped, we could cause more harm when they come in, because we just simply don't know how to support them.
Exactly. You know? I mean, I met a home group, and they had a lady who had alcohol issues.
Yeah.
And you know, she, the home group were quite affluent, and they actually bought her a car, thinking that would help her get to appointments. She couldn't leave the house without drinking neat vodka, and they're giving her the keys to a couple of ton metal vehicle that could have been a death wish, you know. And I had to go to them and say, trying to help them and say, actually, there's different things you could do that would help a million more times.
Yeah.
You know, it's just about awareness and education.
Yeah, I think, like, because I've seen on your website, you're creating a community, you're providing resources, you're diversifying the way that we can take in the information that we need to be able to accommodate and support people. And I think that is very powerful, especially in situations like that, where if they'd had those resources, maybe they would have thought, actually, this might not be a great idea. Maybe we'll, you know, help her in another way. But also, as well, one of the things that I think that can happen that we don't talk about, and here I go going down to taboo, sensitive topics, is that sometimes we can come across as condescending.
Yeah.
So, you know, because I don't think I have an addiction, you know, I'm going to help the poor little addicted person over there, and that can be, that can induce shame. It can make people feel like, I don't want to be in this space because you guys are too holy. What could we as a community or as churches do to really kind of make people feel like safe?
Yeah. I think it's changing the culture of how we talk about addiction, because if I'm doing a talk, I often hardly use the word addiction now. It's, you know, destructive habits and compulsive behaviors, because they're more palatable. A lot of the words we use straight away. We've done a big sort of project on words and terminology of addiction, and actually the connotations it brings. So if you say that someone's clean and free from drugs, and then people say clean, does that mean you're unclean if you're still on a drug or being prescribed something by the doctor? Of course not. But it's how do we broach how we talk about it? I even, you know, I mean, goodness, I've gone to AA meetings most of my life, and I in those meetings you call yourself an alcoholic, but actually I now say I've had alcohol struggles, because actually God doesn't label me an alcoholic, you know. So it's a lot. I've done a lot of work around, but that took many years to feel comfortable saying that. And I think a lot of when we're talking to people in addiction, if we can actually understand what we're broken about, you know, it helps people to identify and realize they're not on their own. They're not the outcasts. They're not the worse than, you know, and understanding that addiction is not a choice.
Yes. 100%.
People make bad life choices to the point where addiction takes hold, but it's not, you know, people are powerless, and we use the word powerless a lot. That's the difference, and that people want to journey with people. I always say to people, I'm always learning, and I've lived a life of addiction, you know. But it's just saying that we haven't got all the answers, but we're willing to stand with you in this for the long haul. And we just get the privilege of providing courses, resources, and upskilling that help people to do that, you know.
Another tricky question. Can you actually ever get over an addiction?
I would say I am recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind.
Yes.
So I am recovered in that sense, but I would say I think it's dangerous to completely not invest in an ongoing recovery. For me personally, you know, a lady I used to work with, honestly, we both came from alcohol addiction, and she walked into a church, the Holy Spirit hit her, the craving went, and she never ever had to do much else in regard to AA meetings or rehab or anything, you know what I mean? And we both ended up at the same journey. I had to put a lot more effort in, physically, you know, tangibly, like, you know, rehabs and meetings and things like that. But what I'd say is I believe that there's always a safe level of vigilance that is required, because I always say that for me, alcohol is only that far away. And you look at how you go into a supermarket, the advertising on telly, you know, promotions, I get leaflets through my door offering me free wine, you know, things like that. I have to have my you know, safety mechanisms up to counteract that, because the world is telling us that we should turn to these things. So I would say that I am recovered from that state of mind, but I'm still on a recovery journey.
Emma, you have already provided so much value. I'm literally like so much to think about, so much to digest, and I'm gutted that we are like literally near the end. I think we've got like a couple of minutes till
I'll willingly, anytime you want me to do anything else with you,
I'd be so glad to have you back. I mean, and now I'm just like, you know, I found you after we'd done the conference. So I'm like, no, I will put everything in place. I can't, you know, ask you to come, but I can, you know, we can connect, and honestly, it would be so lovely to for the women to be able to hear your wisdom, because you are packed with so much. I'm learning so much even here, and I know that when they watch this as well, they will too. I will also let them know about your services in our program for the conference. So we have a list of Friends of 12, and we'll add you to that. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Because I would have come along and actually just joined in on the day. Is it an all-day thing?
It is an all-day thing.
Yeah, because I've got a charity climb up a mountain in Wales that day. But if you when you plan the next one, let me know the date, so at least I can come along. And
it would be so lovely to have you there, really, and even just for them to know you are available, that your services, Star Recovery, is available. Because again, like you said, we all know about Alpha now, but we do need to know about Star Recovery. We do.
And the great thing is we completely slashed our prices, so it's £20 a month for a church, and that's not an individual, that's for a whole church.
Wow. See, we need you.
No, it's a God thing. We just know that he'll provide, and we just need to reach churches and get them on this journey with us, so that they can upskill and do stuff, you know, so that people can contact me anytime.
Awesome. I will also at the end of this recording leave your information for people to get in contact, and the website and everything. But
they email info@starrecovery.org. That goes to my colleague who can help with any inquiries.
Okay, great. I will let them know, and thank you so much. We will definitely keep you updated with the events, and you're more than welcome to join us. We'd be so happy to have you with us. You've already just there's just not enough time.
It's lovely. I feel like a part of your family now.
Yeah,
Just keep in touch. And
yeah, just welcome home.
Thank you. It's a bit like Jubilee Church in London. I go there quite a
Yeah.
lot, spoken there, and every time I go there, I just feel a part of the family. And it's
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I always say that you can always tour with us.
Yay.
So yeah, no, we'll definitely make something happen. But for now, I'll let everyone know your information, and thank you so much for just making the time for this. I'm so honored that you've even made the time. We're so blessed to have the knowledge and the wisdom that you've imparted.